The son of a legend just made one of the most brutally honest confessions you'll ever hear from a rookie quarterback in the NFL. And what he said has the entire football world wondering if the Cleveland Browns are about to make the same catastrophic mistake they've made for the past 2 decades. Shedeur Sanders, the 5th-round pick who wasn't supposed to be starting games in 2025, just looked into the cameras and admitted something that no other quarterback in his position would dare say out loud. And trust me, what comes next is going to blow your mind, because the Browns' quarterback situation has become the most toxic, most unpredictable, most absolutely insane drama in professional football right now. Before we dive into what Shedeur just revealed, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications, because this story is developing by the day, and you don't want to miss a single update as this situation unfolds in real time. Let's rewind to April 2025, the NFL Draft. Shedeur Sanders was sitting there, watching quarterback after quarterback get selected ahead of him. This was supposed to be his moment, the son of NFL Hall of Famer Deshaun Sanders, the Colorado superstar who lit up college football for 2 straight years, the quarterback who many analysts had projected as a potential first-round pick, maybe even a top 10 selection. Mel Kiper Jr. from ESPN ranked him as the #1 quarterback prospect in the entire draft class. Nick Saban himself went on national television and said he was a Shedeur fan, calling him the most accurate quarterback in the draft when he could set his feet and throw on time. This was the player who threw for over 7,000 yards at Colorado, who tossed 64 touchdowns against just 13 interceptions, who led the Buffaloes to 13 wins in a bowl game appearance. This was prime-time son. This was supposed to be his night. But then the first round came and went. Cam Ward went to the Tennessee Titans. Jackson Dart got picked by the New York Giants. Shedeur was still sitting there. The cameras kept cutting to him and his family, and you could see it in their faces, the confusion, the disappointment, the disbelief. Then the second round started. Tyler Shough got selected. Still no Shedeur. The third round began. Jalen Milroe got called. Then Dylan Gabriel, his future teammate, got picked by the Browns in the third round at 94 overall. 5 quarterbacks had now been selected, and Shedeur Sanders was still waiting. When the cameras found him after the first round ended, Shedeur broke his silence for the first time. His words were measured, but you could feel the fire burning underneath. He said, and I quote, "We all didn't expect this. Under no circumstances did we all know this was going to happen. But this is just fuel to the fire. Tomorrow's the day. We're gonna be happy regardless." His father, Dion, posted on social media with a biblical message, talking about how God uses the foolish things to confound the wise and chooses the weak things of the world to put the strong to shame. The Sanders family was trying to stay positive, but you could sense the shock. Day 3 of the draft arrived. The 4th round started. Still no Shedeur. Then, finally, deep into the 5th round, pick number 144 overall, the Cleveland Browns traded up to select Shedeur Sanders. 5th round, 144th overall. For context, that's the same round where you find guys who might never even make an NFL roster. This was a quarterback who many had pegged as a future franchise player, and he had fallen all the way to day 3 of the draft. But here's where the story gets dark. Because as Shedeur fell down the draft boards, reports started leaking about what NFL teams really thought about him. Anonymous scouts and coaches began tearing him apart to the media. One longtime NFL assistant coach, speaking to NFL Network without giving his name, said that Shedeur takes unnecessary sacks, never plays on time, has horrible body language, and blames his teammates. Then came the knockout punch. This anonymous coach called the formal interview with Shedeur the worst he had ever been a part of, and used one word to describe him that would haunt Shedeur throughout his rookie year: entitled. Another longtime AFC executive echoed those sentiments, saying the interview didn't go great, that Shedeur wanted to dictate what he was going to do and what was best for him, and that he made people feel small. These weren't just casual observations. These were character assassinations coming from people inside NFL front offices. Whether these criticisms were fair or not, whether they were motivated by something else, the damage was done. Shedeur Sanders arrived in Cleveland with a massive target on his back, with the weight of his famous last name, with the burden of a humiliating draft slide, and with the entire football world waiting to see if he would prove the doubters right or if he would use it all as motivation to become something special. The Cleveland Browns, of all teams, took a chance on him. And let's be crystal clear about something. The Browns are where quarterback careers go to die. Since the franchise returned to Cleveland in 1999, 43 different quarterbacks have started at least one game for this organization. 43. That's not a typo. That's nearly 2 different starting quarterbacks every single season for over 2 decades. The Browns have been a graveyard for signal callers. Tim Couch, Brady Quinn, Brandon Weeden, Johnny Manziel, Baker Mayfield, Deshaun Watson, name after name after name. All of them arriving with hope and leaving with their careers in shambles or their reputations destroyed. But Shedeur didn't let any of that get to him, at least not publicly. When he arrived at Browns training camp in the summer of 2025, he was buried on the depth chart. Joe Flacco, the veteran who had somehow resurrected his career in Cleveland the previous season, was the number 1 guy. Kenny Pickett, another former first-round pick looking for a fresh start, was number 2. Dylan Gabriel, the 3rd-round pick, was ahead of him, and Shedeur Sanders, the guy who once thought he might go in the top 10, was number 4 on the depth chart, 4th string. He wasn't even getting reps with the starters in practice. He was basically an afterthought. Then came the preseason, August 8th, 2025. The Browns were facing the Carolina Panthers in their first preseason game. With Pickett and Gabriel both dealing with injuries, Shedeur got the start, and he absolutely lit it up. 14 completions on 23 attempts, 138 yards, 2 touchdown passes, 19 rushing yards. The Browns destroyed the Panthers 30-10, and Shedeur was the story of the night. He showed poise in the pocket. He made accurate throws. He scrambled when he needed to. He looked like a guy who belonged. Even LeBron James tweeted about it, telling people not to come at Shedeur with the "it's only preseason" nonsense, because if he had struggled, everyone would have been all over him. But then, reality set in. The regular season started, and Shedeur was back on the bench. Joe Flacco was the starter until the Browns traded him to the Cincinnati Bengals in early October. Then Dylan Gabriel took over. And Shedeur, he was watching, waiting, learning, getting more and more frustrated as week after week passed and he wasn't getting his chance. November 17th, 2025, Week 11. The Browns were playing the Baltimore Ravens at home. Dylan Gabriel was the starter. The game was going poorly for Cleveland. They were getting dominated. Then, at halftime, Gabriel went into the concussion protocol. He wouldn't return. Kevin Stefanski, the Browns head coach, had no choice. Shedeur Sanders was going into the game. This was it, his NFL debut, the moment he had been waiting for since that devastating draft night back in April. And it was an absolute disaster. Shedeur came out in the second half and everything that could go wrong went wrong. He completed just 4 passes out of 16 attempts. 4 out of 16. That's a 25% completion rate. He threw for only 47 yards, which averaged out to less than 3 yards per attempt. He was sacked twice. He threw an interception. His passer rating for the day was 13.5. 13.5. For context, if you just spike the ball into the ground on every single play, your passer rating would be 39.6. Shedeur's performance was literally worse than not even trying. After the game, which the Browns lost 23-16, Shedeur faced the media, and here's where his honesty started to shine through. He didn't make excuses. He didn't blame anyone else. He looked into the cameras and said, "I don't think I played good. I don't think I played good at all." He talked about how he needed to get more comfortable throwing routes with Jerry Jeudy and the other receivers, how that was his first ball to Jeudy all year. He acknowledged it was rough overall, but then he said something that revealed what he was really dealing with. He said, "This is the first time I got hit since my last game at Colorado." Think about that. The first time he got hit in a game situation since college. He hadn't been getting practice reps with the starters. He wasn't prepared. And yet, in typical Shedeur fashion, he still said, "I know I'm made for it.
I don't think there was a doubt in my mind that on that final drive, we were going to go down there and score. Kevin Stefanski tried to defend his decision to barely give Shedeur any reps during the season, saying, playing a backup quarterback role, as we've talked about over the years, that's tough to come in there, but we trust him. But the damage was done. The narrative was set. Shedeur Sanders had flopped in his NFL debut, and all those anonymous scouts and coaches who had trashed him during the draft process looked like they might have been right. But then, something shifted. Dillon Gabriel remained in concussion protocol. For the first time in his professional career, Shedeur Sanders was going to get a week of practice with the first-team offense. He was going to get a game plan built around his strengths. He was going to start in Week 22 against the Las Vegas Raiders. This was his second chance, and this time he was ready. November 23, 2025, Allegiant Stadium in Las Vegas, Shedeur Sanders' first NFL start. And he came out on fire. He completed 11 of 20 passes for 209 yards and a touchdown. He threw one interception, but overall he looked like a completely different player than the one who struggled against Baltimore. His best throw of the day was a 52-yard bomb to Isaiah Bond that had people jumping out of their seats. Then, in the fourth quarter, he connected on a screen pass to rookie running back Dylan Sampson, who took it 66 yards to the house for Shedeur's first career touchdown pass. The Browns won 24-10, and history was made. Shedeur Sanders became the first Cleveland Browns quarterback to win his first NFL start since 1995. 1995! The Browns had gone through a 17-game losing streak for rookie starting quarterbacks before Shedeur finally broke it. After the game, Shedeur walked off the field slowly, stopped at the visitors' tunnel, and did his signature watch celebration, raising his left wrist to the remaining fans who had waited for him. Then he formed a heart with his hands before heading through the tunnel where his father, Deshaun Sanders, was waiting for him with open arms. It was a beautiful moment, a vindication moment, a moment that said to all the doubters, "See, I told you I could do this." Kevin Stefanski praised him after the game, saying, "I thought you saw a lot of what Shedeur does well on the field today. To make that completion to Bond off schedule when we were outmanned in protection, getting the ball down the field, there's a lot that he's doing well." Even though there was still plenty to work on, for one day at least, Shedeur had silenced his critics. But this is the Cleveland Browns we're talking about. Nothing good lasts long in Cleveland. The following week, they faced the Chicago Bears, and it was back to earth in the worst possible way. December 15, 2025, Soldier Field. The Bears' defense came to play. They were leading the NFL in interceptions and total takeaways, and they absolutely feasted on Shedeur. He threw 3 interceptions. 3! The Browns' offense managed just 3 points the entire game. They lost 31-3. It was humiliating. The first interception came in the third quarter on a deep ball where Shedeur got hit as he threw. The second one was particularly painful. He threw a perfect pass to Jerry Jeudy in the end zone that should have been a touchdown, but Jeudy couldn't hold on to the ball. It bounced up into the air and was picked off. The third interception came in the fourth quarter when Shedeur underthrew tight end Harold Fannin Jr. and the ball was snatched by C.J. Gardner-Johnson. After the game, when reporters asked Shedeur about the Jeudy play, about that perfect touchdown pass that turned into an interception because his receiver dropped it, Shedeur showed the maturity and leadership that made people believe in him in the first place. He said, "It's going to happen. I'm not one to ever kick somebody down when they're down. He understands that's a big play. I'm sure he's hard on himself. There's no need for me to be extra and do that." He refused to throw his teammate under the bus, even when he had every right to be frustrated. The Browns were now 1-5 in Sanders' starts. The losses were piling up. Cleveland was sitting at 3 wins and 12 losses on the season. They had the 3rd overall pick in the upcoming draft, and the whispers started getting louder and louder. Would the Browns draft another quarterback? Would they give up on both Shedeur and Dillon Gabriel after just 1 season? What about Deshaun Watson, the guy with the fully guaranteed $230 million contract who had been sitting on the physically unable to perform list all season, recovering from not 1 but 2 Achilles injuries? Can you imagine being in Shedeur's shoes at that moment? You fight your way up from fourth string, you finally get your chance to start, you win your first game, you struggle in your second and third games because you're behind a makeshift offensive line that has featured 9 different starting combinations, you're getting sacked left and right, you're trying to build chemistry with receivers you barely practiced with. And now, the team is openly discussing whether they should bring back a veteran quarterback who missed 38 out of 68 possible games over the past 3 seasons, who has a 9-10 record as a Browns starter, and who the team owner Jimmy Haslam himself called a big swing and miss. This is the toxicity that defines the
But Shedeur Sanders isn't backing down. Not even close. On December 21st, the Browns played the Buffalo Bills at home. Shedeur got off to a hot start, throwing a touchdown pass on the very first drive to Harold Fannin Jr., but then the Bills' defense adjusted. Shedeur struggled. He finished 20 of 29 for 157 yards, 1 touchdown, and 2 interceptions. Both picks came off tipped balls, plays where the receiver either missed the catch or the ball got deflected on the throw. He was sacked twice. The Browns lost again. But here's what happened after the game that really tells you everything you need to know about Shedeur Sanders and why this situation in Cleveland is about to explode. Reporters started asking him about the coaching decisions. They were trying to get him to criticize Kevin Stefanski, to throw his coaches under the bus, to create drama and headlines. And Shedeur shut it down immediately. With a smile on his face, he said, "I know you can't be asking me that question. Come on, man." See, that's the thing. If we want to change the narrative, if we want to change the franchise, those types of things separate us. A lot of the players get these types of questions. We want to be working with y'all. We want to be proactive. But when questions are asked to us players and you're pinning stuff against each other, it's like, come on now. It's like a thing in the locker room. We're not going to be able to talk to them for real. We're not going to be able to give them what they need because that separates the team. That doesn't help anything in any situation, no matter how you answer it. He's 23 years old, and he's giving a masterclass in leadership and media relations. He's protecting his coaches. He's protecting his teammates. He's trying to keep the locker room together, even as everything is falling apart around him. And he's doing it with grace and maturity that you rarely see from rookies. Then, on December 23rd, just 2 days after that loss to Buffalo, Shedeur held another press conference, and this is where he broke his silence in the most profound way possible. This is where he laid it all out on the table. A reporter asked him if he had been thinking about how much better things could potentially be in his second season, if he was looking ahead to next year with optimism. His response? "No, I live in the present. I live in the present. I'm focused on this week and this game, and nothing's promised. Nothing's promised going into next year or anything. So I stay in the moment, stay focused on what I have to do now to even be able to be here next year, you know?" Let that sink in. The starting quarterback of an NFL team, a guy who was just drafted 6 months ago, is openly saying that nothing is promised for him next year. He's saying he has to focus on what he needs to do just to be here next year. He's acknowledging that his future with this organization is completely uncertain, that despite being the starter, despite winning his first game, despite showing flashes of brilliance, he might not even be on this roster in 2026. He continued, "I don't think it's about anything of that. It's about controlling what you can control as a person, as a player. I think I have to do my part. I think I have to do my part and get some wins, do my part and play clean football. The rest isn't in my hands. So that's really all it is. I don't own the organization, you know? So I can't promise anything will happen. I'm not God. I can't dictate what's going to happen each and every day, each and every minute. You've just got to enjoy what you do have. You've got to enjoy the present. You can't look too deep into the future because then you'll miss the blessings and the lessons you learn from the now." This is a 23-year-old kid who should be feeling secure in his position, who should be thinking about how he's going to build on this season and become the franchise quarterback in 2026. Instead, he's talking like a guy who knows his days might be numbered, like a guy who has zero job security despite being a current starter. And the most insane part?
he's probably right to feel that way. Because just hours after that press conference, Kevin Stefanski announced that Deshaun Watson would not be activated from the physically unable to perform list. Watson's 21-day practice window had closed, and the team made the decision not to add him to the active roster. On the surface, that sounds like good news for Shedeur, like the team is committing to him for the rest of the season. But then reports started coming out from Cleveland beat writers like Mary Kay Cabot, who wrote that even if the Browns decide to roll with Shedeur in 2026, he'll have to demonstrate throughout the offseason program that he's poised to win, or the Browns will consider starting Deshaun Watson until he's ready. Read that again. Even if they decide to go with Shedeur, he'll have to prove himself in the offseason, or they might start Watson instead, a guy with a $46 million salary and an $80 million cap hit in 2026, a guy who would be virtually impossible to cut or trade, a guy who has missed more games than he has played over the past 3 seasons. That's the guy the Browns might turn to if Shedeur doesn't impress them enough in offseason workouts. This is the Cleveland Browns in all their dysfunctional glory. This is an organization that has no plan, no vision, no commitment to anything or anyone. They traded the 2nd overall pick in the 2025 draft to Jacksonville for a massive haul of picks, specifically so they could punt on taking a quarterback and wait until 2026 when the draft class would supposedly be better. They drafted 2 quarterbacks anyway, Dillon Gabriel in the 3rd round and Shedeur in the 5th. Gabriel started the season, got hurt, and now is the backup. Shedeur took over and has shown both promise and struggles. And now, with the Browns sitting at 3-12 with the 3rd overall pick in the 2026 draft, they're reportedly considering drafting another quarterback with a high pick. Maybe Fernando Mendoza from Indiana, maybe Dante Moore from Oregon. Another young guy to throw into the meat grinder, another name to add to the list of failed Cleveland quarterbacks. Or maybe they'll trade up. Mock drafts are already predicting the Browns could package their 2 first-round picks to move up and select someone like Riley Leonard out of Texas or Julian Sayin from Ohio State. Either way, the message to Shedeur is clear. You're not safe. You're not secure. We're going to keep looking for something better, even though we just drafted you 6 months ago. And yet, despite all of this, despite the chaos and the uncertainty and the complete lack of organizational support, Shedeur Sanders keeps showing up. He keeps fighting. He keeps taking the hits behind that terrible offensive line. He keeps getting back up after throwing interceptions. He keeps protecting his teammates and coaches in press conferences. He keeps living in the present because that's all he can control. There are now 2 games left in the Browns season. They play the Steelers at home, a team that is 9-6 and fighting for the AFC North title. The Steelers are 27-6 on rookie quarterbacks since Mike Tomlin became head coach in 2007. That's the best record in the league. They feasted on Dillon Gabriel earlier this season, sacking him 6 times in a 23-9 win. Now they get to face Shedeur, who has been sacked 13 times in his 5 starts, which is the 6th most in that span. His completion percentage over the past 5 games is 58.3%, which is 6th lowest among qualifying quarterbacks. His passer rating is 73.7, tied for 2nd lowest. The only quarterback with a worse rating in that span? Baker Mayfield, who spent his first 4 years in Cleveland after being the 1st overall pick in 2018 and ultimately had his career nearly destroyed by this organization before reviving it in Tampa Bay.
After the Steelers game, the Browns finished the season against the Miami Dolphins. And then what? Then comes the longest offseason of Shedeur Sanders' life, an offseason where he'll watch the Browns potentially draft another quarterback high, an offseason where Deshaun Watson will be fully healthy and carrying that massive contract, an offseason where Kevin Stefanski and general manager Andrew Berry might both get fired, which means a new coaching staff and front office that didn't draft Shedeur, that has no investment in him, that might want to bring in their own guy. The comparisons to Baker Mayfield are impossible to ignore. Baker was the 1st overall pick in 2018. He showed promise as a rookie, breaking the record for touchdown passes by a rookie. But then the Browns kept changing head coaches and offensive coordinators. They brought in Odell Beckham Jr. and created a media circus. They never gave Baker the support or stability he needed to develop. Eventually, they gave up on him and traded him to Carolina, where his career nearly died before Matt Rule gave him another shot in Tampa Bay, where he's now thriving under a competent coaching staff and a functional organization. Is that Shedeur's future? Is he going to be yet another talented quarterback who gets chewed up and spit out by the Cleveland Browns before finding success somewhere else? Or is there a chance, even a small one, that the Browns actually learn from their mistakes and commit to developing the young quarterback they have, instead of constantly searching for the next shiny new toy? Here's what we know. Shedeur Sanders has dealt with adversity his entire life. He grew up as the son of one of the most famous athletes in the world, which came with insane pressure and expectations. He played at Jackson State, an HBCU, where he dominated the SWAC conference and won the Deacon Jones Trophy as the nation's top HBCU player. He followed his father to Colorado and immediately set a school record with 510 passing yards in his first game. He became one of college football's biggest stars, playing under the brightest spotlight imaginable. He dealt with criticism about his arm strength, his tendency to hold the ball too long, his body language. He endured one of the most humiliating draft falls in recent memory, dropping from a potential top 10 pick all the way to the 5th round, while anonymous coaches called him entitled and trashed his interview skills. And through all of it, he's never quit. He's never made excuses. He's been accountable, mature, and focused. When Jerry Jeudy dropped a touchdown pass that turned into an interception, Shedeur refused to blame him. When reporters tried to get him to criticize his coaches, he shut it down to protect the team. When asked about his uncertain future, he didn't complain or demand commitment. He simply said he's going to control what he can control and live in the present. That's not the attitude of an entitled player. That's not the personality of someone who makes people feel small. That's the mindset of a leader, of someone who has been through the fire and come out stronger on the other side. And that's why, despite all the dysfunction surrounding him, despite the terrible record and the uncertain future, people still believe in Shedeur Sanders. Even Aaron Rodgers, who knows a thing or two about falling in the draft and dealing with adversity, recently said, "I've followed Shedeur's career. It was a tough draft slide, obviously a much longer wait than mine was, but it seems like he's been patient and worked on his craft, and he's been playing pretty good the last few weeks." Shannon Sharpe, Pro Football Hall of Famer and one of the most respected voices in football, watched Shedeur throw those 2 touchdowns against Tennessee and tweeted about his strong performance. Richard Sherman, former All-Pro cornerback, said Shedeur was balling and throwing high-level passes. Tyler Huntley, the Ravens' backup quarterback, just said he was going to call Shedeur before the Steelers game to give him words of encouragement because he wants to see him succeed. These are people who know what it takes to succeed in professional sports, who understand adversity and pressure and what it means to overcome doubters. And they all see something in Shedeur Sanders that makes them believe he's going to make it, that he's going to prove everyone wrong. But will the Cleveland Browns give him the chance? That's the billion-dollar question. Because right now, as Shedeur himself admitted, nothing is promised. He could play lights out in these final 2 games and still get replaced next season. He could struggle and confirm all the doubts. He could do everything right and still fall victim to the Browns' organizational dysfunction that has destroyed 42 other starting quarterbacks since 1999. The Browns are at a crossroads. They have 2 first-round picks in the 2026 draft, including potentially a top 3 selection. They have a $230 million mistake in Deshaun Watson that they can't get rid of. They have 2 rookie quarterbacks in Sanders and Gabriel who have shown flashes, but also plenty of rough patches. They have a head coach in Kevin Stefanski, whose job is on the line after going 6-22 over the past 2 seasons following a playoff appearance in 2023. They have a general manager in Andrew Berry who made the trade for Watson and whose entire future with the organization depends on figuring out this quarterback mess. Do they draft another quarterback and start the cycle all over again? Do they commit to Shedeur and give him a real offseason to develop with the starting unit? Do they bring back Watson and try one more time to get a return on that massive investment? Do they trade for a veteran and add even more uncertainty to the position?
Nobody knows, and that includes Shedeur Sanders. All he can do is what he's been doing since that devastating draft night back in April. Wake up every day, put in the work, control what he can control, and prove that everyone who doubted him was wrong. That's the only script he's following. That's the only promise he's making to himself and to the people who believe in him. The quarterback drama in Cleveland has exploded. Shedeur Sanders just broke his silence and admitted that his future is uncertain, that nothing is promised, that he's just trying to survive one day at a time in one of the most toxic quarterback situations in NFL history. And over these next 2 weeks, as the Browns close out another lost season, we're going to find out if this organization has finally learned its lesson, or if Shedeur Sanders is going to become the 44th name on the list of quarterbacks who couldn't make it work in Cleveland. One thing is certain, whatever happens, Shedeur will face it with the same grace, maturity, and determination that he's shown since day one, because that's who he is, that's who his father raised him to be, and no amount of organizational chaos is going to change that. The next chapter of this story is about to be written, and the entire football world is watching to see if the Cleveland Browns and Shedeur Sanders can find a way forward together, or if this is just another tragic chapter in the most dysfunctional franchise in professional sports.
This story is based on publicly available reports, statements from press conferences, game statistics, and media coverage from reputable sports outlets as of December 2025. The situation surrounding Shedeur Sanders and the Cleveland Browns quarterback position remains fluid and continues to develop. Player performances, organizational decisions, and team situations are subject to change as the season progresses and the offseason approaches. Some commentary and analysis represents interpretation of events and statements. Viewers should check current news sources for the most up-to-date developments in this ongoing story.